to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Lower East Side here in the city, powered by the East Side Community Network and sponsored by none other than the Ford Foundation, now a content partner to the newbridgedetroit.com. I'm Donna Gibbons-Davidson, and I'm flying solo today because Orlando is under the weather. You all send up a prayer for my co-host and partner in crime, and he sends his love. Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people on the East Side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you listen to us on. We drop a new episode every week, so turn on those notifications. Today, I'm honored to welcome a longtime friend and East Sider, Daniel Baxter. Daniel has served in many important roles in our community, including most visibly as Director of Elections. But today he is also joining us as founder and leader of the Ossian Sweet Foundation. Did I get that right, Daniel? Is it the Ossian Sweet Foundation?
Yes, as founder and CEO of the Ossian Sweet Foundation.
Yeah, okay, I know that's right. Get it right. Welcome, Daniel, to Authentically Detroit. And happy Black History Month. With all this going on in the world, what does this month mean to you?
This is one of my favorite months of the year. And obviously it's not because Valentine's Day falls in February, but it's Black History Month. I'm so excited and grateful for the fact that so many years ago, a brother by the name of Carter G. Woodson saw that there was an issue associated with the achievements that Black folk had done up to the turn of the 20th century. And as such, he began to identify those achievements and catalog them. And then he looked at February as an optimal time to celebrate Blackness for two reasons. Number one, on February 12th, we celebrate the birthday of the great emancipator, who is Abraham Lincoln. And then secondly, which is more significant to me, is that February 14th, Valentine's Day, is the designated birthday of Frederick Douglass, one of the most prolific speakers of the 19th century. And as such, he created Negro History Week, and it caught fire. And now today, we celebrate February as Black History Month because of what Carter G. Woodson did so many years ago, almost 100 years ago from today. So I love February.
I do too. And I'm hoping you and your beautiful wife celebrate also Valentine's Day on Saturday. So
we'll see.
Not just
we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, well, it's my first. It's our first year married, so we are definitely going to celebrate. But listen, you've heard of the Ebony Cover Challenge. Have you done that?
No.
Okay, so the Ebony Cover Challenge, Black History Month, you have to look up the cover, yes. Ebony magazine, the month and year you were born. And so I looked mine up, September 1963, and everybody has these beautiful models on their birthday or these handsome men. Well, listen, mine was Frederick Douglass. My birth month in September of 1963 was a 100-year celebration of commemoration of the Emancipation Proclamation. So, I just found that out, this week playing a game on Facebook. But Black History Month means a lot. When I was a kid in Detroit Public Schools, we had Black History Week. And so I was really excited because I won a black ribbon reciting a poem. And, black ribbon was the highest form of honor. It was black, then green, then red. And my sister won a contest. She got a green ribbon, having drawn a picture of Frederick Douglass. So it means a lot to me. I think it's important that our young people learn about it. I think it's always important to celebrate not just our struggle, but our achievements and really our greatness as a people, because Frederick Douglass was more than just a person who struggled against oppression. He was a great thinker, a great man who achieved so much, and really one of the best orators around, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And he was a preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Many people didn't know that about Frederick Douglass. One of the other things that's really interesting, in 1863, Douglass gives his "If there is no struggle, there is no progress" speech. which was hailed as one of the greatest speeches that was ever given in terms of emancipation. So I love Frederick Douglass, and you're mentioning that. I remember my first report for Black History Month was on Dr. Charles Drew. Dr. Charles Drew, as you know, was a brother who invented the blood plasma that made it so critical for blood transfusion. If he hadn't done what he did in creating that, we wouldn't have had blood transfusion. The sad commentary to his life is that he died because he got in a car accident, and then they took him to an all-white hospital, and he needed a blood transfusion, and they denied him. He and Carter G. Woodson were best friends, and that troubled Carter G. Woodson for a long time. He mourned the death of Dr. Charles Drew.
Oh, what you're just a historian all around, and we have so much that we're going to talk about. But we are going to do a little segment on what's in the news. And I've always enjoyed talking to you because you got your degree in political science as well as me, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Mercy. So we're both poli-sci majors, and always had these great political discussions. So what's in the news today? I've got two political articles. One of them is the new Michigan redistricting rules raises questions about communities of interest. And this is written by Beth LeBlanc and a new African-American reporter at the news, Jasmine Barrymore. I was interviewed for this article. But it talks about the new redistricting rules, the fact that we have voters, not politicians. And there are now this thing called communities of interest, where in addition to traditional county lines or municipal boundaries, they are now looking at places where people have a natural affinity with each other. And in Detroit, communities of interest have been described as areas like the area the East Side Community Network serves, or in the article, like the North End and like Brightmoor, places where there's a specific culture, geography, and shared needs. And this concept that when you have people who are drawing boundaries, sometimes people who have a shared interest don't have a shared political representation, and that can dilute our power. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that that's a good thing, first and foremost. Working for the Department of Elections, after the political boundaries have been written or drawn as a result of the 2020 census, then right around August, September, those boundaries are handed down to the local jurisdictions. So it's always good when you see these lines that are drawn all over the place. The one thing that's really refreshing is that with this new method, what it will do is it will keep people united in their own self-interest. And I think that that's what's really critical. I mean, when you look at it from a historical standpoint, you know, you can compromise, you can point right at the compromise of 1877 that destroyed all of the progress that was achieved under Reconstruction. During Reconstruction, when African Americans had an opportunity to vote, they voted for their own self-interest, and they voted Black people into office that would ensure that their liberties were established and secured under the Constitution. So the same thing is true with your boundary lines. Those individuals who draw those lines should look at the demographics, the racial, the social, the political, the economic demographics, and then draw those boundaries with that particular sensitivity in mind. And what it does is that it cultivates not only a sense of unity, but it also cultivates growth within the community. One of the plagues, if you will, of the civil rights movement or the civil rights era is that once we were empowered to fully enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we began to move away from each other, we being Black folk. And as such, we diluted our own power. When we were united, whether we were in the Black bottom whether or not we were on the west side over by the Jeffries Freeway and West Grand Boulevard, we had a consolidated interest and we had a consolidated power that really demonstrated itself by the election of Charles Diggs as the first African-American congressman in 1954. So the same thing can be relived and resuscitated with this new opportunity that comes before us right now. So I'm happy to hear about it.
You know, when I look at us exercising power, and I'm teaching a class right now, and so I had to study the history of Detroit so I could know what I was talking about. And I'm reading all these books. And one of the most exciting things I read was really how Black people in Detroit in the 1920s came together to exercise the kind of political power that put Judge Murphy in office.
That's right.
It was in opposition to what Henry Ford and the industrialists wanted. They thought that they could control the whole thing. And Black people came together and banded together with other immigrant groups and put a judge in office. And we're going to talk about his significance in a little while when you talk about the story that you have become Detroit famous for. But maybe even bigger than Detroit. But when you look at that, I think it's important for us to understand how strong we have been, even at a time where most Black people in this nation could not vote. Not only did we move here from places where we couldn't, but we got together, fought against efforts to suppress our votes, and voted nonetheless. So anyway, so I'm excited about that. I think redistricting is a great thing. And so I credit to the news for publishing that story. And hey, they made me the cover girl for that story. My sister,
cover girl.
I was like, she was like, who is this on the front page of the Detroit News? I had no idea the story was coming out. Anyway, right. So the second story, I think you'll get a kick out of this one. This was kind of interesting, and it's about the Mike Shirkey, the state Senate leader in Michigan, who said, was quoted saying or recorded saying that the insurrection was a hoax and that that those were not really Trump voters and that it was really a staged event. And in light of the loss of life and the seriousness of the impeachment charges, I just thought it was interesting that one of our state leaders, who was also one to cast doubt on the integrity of the vote in the city of Detroit, is also casting doubt on something we all watched live and in living color. Most of us were horrified on January 6th when we saw it. Any thoughts on that? And this is reported in the Detroit Free Press.
Well, I mean, historically, you know, people said that the Holocaust didn't happen. Many have said that even slavery never occurred. But we can see the effects of both the Holocaust and slavery even today. And the truth of the matter is that it's a travesty and a sad commentary that someone would reduce something so significant and so great of a threat to democracy to a hoax. We all watched it on television. We all watched whose names were on those banners. We saw whose names were on those hats. We saw who called the shot in terms of marching down Pennsylvania Avenue. We saw all of those particular realities, and it just speaks to where we are as a nation. I mean, it's almost as if we look at our politics as a reality show, as opposed to a reality to really transcend socially, politically, and economically. So for him to say something like that is very shameful, and it shouldn't have happened. He should be very careful, and I believe that he owes the public a public apology as a result of saying something so ridiculous.
Yeah, there's going to be a reckoning for all these folks. It's not happening right away, but I believe there will be a reckoning. You can't put out this kind of misinformation and support this kind of behavior without having some kind of consequences in the future. So that wraps up our Fresh Off the Press. And if you have pieces you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. So Daniel, I've been delving into so much of Detroit's history, especially Black history in our community, and there's so much to discuss with you. But you're a true expert on the slice of Detroit around, man. I found that out years ago when I read the book Arc of Justice, and somehow I ended up talking to you and you narrated the story for me. It was amazing. Can you tell us how you first learned about Dr. Sweet and how old you were?
I love telling that story. um, so just to give a backdrop, Dr. Ossian Sweet was an African-American physician who moved into an all-white neighborhood on the southeast side of Detroit on the corner of Garland and Charlevoix. And as a consequence, a mob of more than 500 angry whites surrounded his home with one focus, and that was to force him out of their community and keep it lily white. As a consequence, shots rang out of the house. 2 men were shot. 1 man was killed by the name of Leon Briner. And as a consequence, the Detroit Police Department arrested everybody and charged them with murder. That's Dr. Sweet, his wife Gladys, his brother Otis, his brother Henry, and 7 of their friends. The national branch of the NAACP found out about it, and as a consequence, they hired famed attorney Clarence Darrow, who based his whole case on a man's home as his castle. The presiding judge, as you alluded to, was Frank Murphy. And after deliberation, 2 days of deliberation, the jury came back with no decision. And as a consequence, the trial was thrown out and declared a mistrial. The following April, his brother Henry was retried, and the jury came back unanimously saying that he was not guilty. I learned about that house because I grew up in it. My parents purchased it in 1958. I was born in 65. 10 years later, on a Friday of 1975, the doorbell rang. We had come home early from school, and we were having lunch at the kitchen table. My mother went to answer the door. She came to the door, opened the door, came back to the house, came back to the kitchen, and said to my dad, "Herbert, the man from the paper is here and somebody needs to talk to him about the house." She said, my dad said, oh, no, I'm not talking to him. I'm not talking to him. My mother said, "Well, Herbert, somebody got to talk to him." And my dad said, "I'm not talking to him. If you want somebody to talk to him, send Danny." I'm 10 years old. I really don't know much, but I go out there and the newspaper reporter asked me my name. I said, "My name is Danny Baxter." He said, "Do you know the history of the house?" I said, "Yeah, black guy lived here a long time ago, killed a white guy, and he didn't go to jail." The reporter looked at me, asked me a couple more questions, took a picture, and he left. The following Monday, I go to school. My teacher, 5th grade teacher, Dorothy Barnes, stands before the entire class and says, "Hey, everybody, we got a celebrity in the class." Everybody's looking around for Michael Jackson, Rodney Allen Ripley, somebody like that, right? Nobody shows up, but she opens up this newspaper, and on the front page, it says, "Little has changed since the 25 trial." And it's a story on Dr. Ossian Sweet. And in the middle of it was the picture that the reporter took that previous Friday. After she read the story, she asked me to come up and tell the story about the house, and I couldn't tell the story. So when I went home, I told my mother what happened, and she gave me this briefcase with all of these articles and these wonderful pictures, the Ebony magazine, or the Ebony had an encyclopedia back in the 70s and 80s. She gave me that, and it told me the whole story of Dr. Ossian Sweet. So in a nutshell, that's how I found out about the legacy or the saga of Dr. Ossian Sweet.
Well, thank you. That's a great story. I've loved hearing it. And I have to tell you, I just learned something about my family history that I want to share with you. So Dr. Sweet is, trained in Europe.
Yes.
On obstetric gynecological techniques, right?
Yeah.
So he was not just a doctor. He was, internationally trained physician.
Yes, he was.
My grandfather, Donovan Heston Givens, graduated from the University of Indiana Medical School in 1925, I believe.
Oh,
and
wow.
First moved to Chicago and couldn't make any money. So then he moved to Detroit and trained under Dr. Sweet.
Wow.
Isn't
that not incredible?
Right, it is. And my grandparents, when my grandparents raised my father, they lived on Charlevoix, 2 blocks west of Mount Elliott. And that house is still standing. And so in the McDougal Hunt neighborhood, And we thought the house was gone, but he actually practiced medicine in the basement, and they lived upstairs, and there were stairs going from the street into the lower level where his office was.
Yeah.
So Dr. Sweet, and I was reading, you know, I'm doing my own family historical stuff, and I'm reading this, and I'm like, what? I had no idea, even though I'm sure I heard the stories as a kid, but you know how you don't listen to old folks when you're little, and then you get old and the old folks are gone. And it's like, wait a minute, I have questions. But anyway, I learned about that, and I really wanted to share that with you. So I'm going to share this article that was written about my dad, where this all comes out. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
So
that is incredible.
Right. I wish I could hear more. I wish I knew more about what that was, but it's such an incredible time in our history for our people who are really kept in spaces where they cannot live among white people, right? And then you grew up on Garland and at Charlevoix, right?
Yes.
And you grew up. Could you imagine that being the case when you were a child?
I couldn't. I could not fathom the concept. There were many days that I tried to stand in the middle of the intersection. I stood in my mother's window trying to see a sea of rage. I just couldn't imagine it. And it's only because I didn't have to, because Dr. Sweet did it. You know, he was the trailblazer that paved the way that we might be able to stand on his shoulders and his achievements. So while I couldn't imagine that, I have had a weight of tremendous appreciation on what Dr. Sweet did in 1925. In fact, I'm right here at the Sweet House right now.
And you preserved it, you started a foundation. Can you talk about all of that, what led to the historical designations and the formation of your foundation and what your foundation is doing?
So the historical designation really started in the 70s with the National Park Services. They had recognized Dr. Sweet's house as a historical landmark back in the early 70s. And then moving forward in 2004, the National Black Prosecutors were planning their 2004 conference in the city of Detroit. And at that time, Mike Duggan was the prosecuting attorney, and he recommended to his Black prosecutors to use the Ossian Sweet as one of the features and highlights while they had their conference. And as such, about 5 Black attorneys came to our house right around February and asked us whether we would be interested in being a part of the convention and the celebration. And we agreed. We worked collaboratively to get the state marker. Alberta Tinsley Talabi, who is the queen of the East Side, worked with us. She raised all the money we needed in order to purchase the marker and to celebrate the event. In June of 2004, there were more than 300 people who had gathered at Howe Elementary School to celebrate the event, and we did the unveiling of the marker. And then in 2018, worked again with Mayor Mike Duggan, and we were able to secure a $500,000 grant from the National Park Service to restore the house. So that work will begin late this year. As we move forward, we're so excited about that. But even in the interim, what we also did was, I established the Ossian Sweet Foundation on urban diversity. The Ossian Sweet Foundation's main feature is social, voter participation, and then educational excellence. Last year, we partnered with Hutchinson Howe and identified 4 students. They did an essay on the importance of what happened in 1925. We were able to award them with $200 gift certificates and a $350 scholarship. This year, we did the same thing for February. We recognized a student who's not only who demonstrates academic excellence, but he's also an athlete. and we gave him a $2,000 scholarship for his college education. So those are some of the things that we're doing right now. Some more things that we want to do as we move forward is to work towards uniting our community, work towards developing that same standard that existed in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where you know your neighbors, where there's a relationship with the neighbors, where there's pride in the community, where there's conversations that are going on that will benefit the uplift of our community. So we've been doing that for the past 2 years, and we're really excited because this year, what we also did was we're working on a documentary, and it'll be released in the last week of this month. And it's the story of Dr. Ossian Sweet.
Oh, wow.
Mayor Duggan, Phyllis Vine, who wrote One Man's Castle, the Detroit City Clerk. We have several judges, as well as historian Jamon Jordan, who are articulating various points about Dr. Sweet's life. So we're really excited about that. We're partnering with Wayne County Community College to put this together. And we're hoping that people will be able to receive it and learn a lot more, not only about Dr. Ossian Sweet, but learn about the civil rights movement that he began before the 1950s and the 1960s.
That is amazing. And of course, you know, Eastside Community Network is working in this very neighborhood that you are the houses in, and we want to partner with you whenever possible. I'd love to coordinate a screening with you so that we can invite our neighbors in to see this. I know that there will be tremendous
thank you
in that.
That'll be awesome. I look forward to that.
Yeah, so let's now what day is it going to be released?
It's the last week in February.
Okay. So
I don't know
I have some ideas. I have some ideas, but I'm going to reach out to you offline and not put you on the spot too much. Just know that this is great, and I think it really fits in with what we want to do. Always lifting up our history as a means of moving forward, because when you know where you come from, you know where you're going. And you know, you ask yourself, what would have happened if our ancestors had not banded together and elected Judge Murphy mayor? When you look at other people on the judicial slate, other people who were clearly violently racist, would he have had a fair hearing? Would there have been a fair trial? And then you look at what happened with Judge Murphy afterwards when he became mayor. And he worked with the Black community on doing things that really helped to facilitate equity and redistribution of wealth. And really, FDR modeled the New Deal out of so much of what happened in Detroit that Black Detroiters helped to define and develop as leaders, not just as recipients. The leadership in this community just runs so strong. When I grew up in Detroit, and when you grew up, you're just a couple years younger than me, I think. But when we grew up in Detroit, when we grew up in Detroit, all my teachers were Black. My principal was Black. And when I turned 10 years old, my mayor was Black. My council people were Black. School board was Black. Judges were Black. Doctors were Black. Architects were Black. That was, you know, kind of unusual, wasn't it, to have so much achievement and excellence that we were surrounded with, you know, not just pastors, not just, you know, but everybody in all walks of life. Union leaders were Black. You had people who were, police chief was Black. You had so many layers of, you know, Black achievement. It wasn't just athletes and it wasn't just pastors, although we had Black athletes and pastors who rounded it out and brought us together. But we had a community where I really had no concept of Black inferiority.
And let me connect it for you a little bit. Let me say, why is that so important? I'll tell you why. When I started working for the city back in 1985, prior to that, I worked for Seavid, Wiscott and Stowe, which was a law firm in Southfield, Michigan. I worked for Century 21 Corporate, and I worked for Kelsey Hayes Corporate. All of my bosses, all of the CEOs, the CFOs, they were all white, right? So I never really made a connection there. So when I came to the city and I started working for the Detroit Department of Elections, the director of elections was a Black man by the name of Eddie Wilson. And when I saw that, the first thought that I had at 19 years old was that I can be the director of elections one day. And guess what? God saw favor in my thought and allowed that to come to pass. So the reality is that when you have an opportunity to rub shoulders with Black doctors, Black lawyers, Black police chiefs, Black fire chiefs, if you can see it, you can be it. Your imagination has the ability to connect to those particular positions when you can see yourself in that particular person.
That's right.
So that's what makes it relevant. But look, what happened to Malcolm X when he was a little boy and he said he wanted to be a lawyer? He had a white teacher. He said, well, Malcolm, you know, if you become a lawyer, my people aren't going to hire you, and your people definitely aren't going to hire you. And Malcolm had a brilliant mind. You know what I'm saying? If he had those Black mentors around him to encourage him and push him, who knows what he would have been.
Right. But you look at Detroit from our childhood, so much upward mobility. So many people grew up poor, grew up without a whole lot, and have just become experts and greats in every walk in life, right?
That's
Detroit
right.
was, Cass Tech was a great equalizer. Didn't matter where you came from. If you went to Cass, you were going somewhere. But you also had that in neighborhood high schools where you had programs inside of neighborhood high schools that helped young people believe they could be something. And I look at young people today in Detroit, and I wonder if they have the same access to role models, the same access to belief, and the same, efforts to move them into new places. And there's, because right now, when you go to places like University of Michigan, where I went to college, most of the people I went to college with were first generation college students. Right now, most of the Black kids at the University of Michigan are kids who come from very well off families. Low income kids, poor kids, kids who are first generation don't go to the University of Michigan. Our upward mobility seems to have stalled a little bit, and we need to get back to the business of helping our young people dream and helping them understand their possible greatness. And it looks like that's something your foundation is working on, certainly something Eastside Community Network is committed to. And I hope more of us can just wrap our arms around young people and give them what we received, and that is a belief in our own greatness.
That's right. That's right. That's so critical. While Napoleon Hill coined the phrase, the first time I ever heard it was when I worked for the city of Detroit summer youth program back in 1980, the summer of 1980. At that time, Coleman Young was the mayor. And at the end of the summer youth program, we had this big celebration event, and it was at the Ford Auditorium. Oh, there had to be thousands of kids in there. And the keynote speaker was Jesse Jackson. And it was the first time that I ever heard anybody speak that powerful about how incredible, how important the imagination was. He said, if your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, then you can achieve it. Those are three critical phrases: conceive, believe, and achieve. And it all starts in the mind and it goes right to the heart. So I think that that's what we need to get back to, is begin to mentor our young Black children, make sure that they understand whose shoulders they stand on, understand our history and how rich it is, and how our history has the same ability to empower us as does the Bible. Certainly, there's no comparison, but the truth of the matter is that we were talking about Frederick Douglass earlier. If you read the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, realizing that he started off as a slave and he transcended social, economic, and political barriers to be one of the most prolific personalities in the 19th century, the question that begs to be asked is, what hinders us? What precludes us from achieving our greatness? What precludes us from walking in purpose and in destiny if we don't have shackles on us, if we don't have the same barriers? The problem is that many of us have transcended to a level where we've achieved and we think that that's the end all. The truth of the matter is that we got to reach back and bring other people up so that we can continue to perpetuate our legacy to ensure that the future of Black Detroit remains strong and relevant in our community.
But you know what? I so agree with you on all of that. We have got to. But I think that, one of the challenges, we don't believe in each other anymore. When I went to school in the 1960s, 1970s in Detroit, now I ended up going to Catholic schools. It wasn't quite that way in the Catholic schools. When I was in Detroit public schools, the teachers believed in the students and demanded high performance from the students. There was not this sense of inferiority. There was no sense that Black children, Black families were inferior in the same way that there is right now. There were high demands, there were high expectations, and there was love. Right now, I hear so many people talking down on families and children in our community, speaking as if they have no worth, speaking as if they have no potential, saying things like, well, you got to catch them young. If you don't catch them by the time they're 3 years old, or if they're not reading by the time they're in third grade, they're going to prison. And I don't understand how we can perpetuate these dangerous narratives about human potential. There are human beings who did not read until they were 20, who have master's degrees. And I know one, right? Who was a young man who was one of our programs. And I was at Vanguard, came up through our program, graduated from Northern High School, couldn't read, learned how to read as an adult, went on to get his associate's degree from Wayne County Community College, went on to get his bachelor's degree, then went on to get his master's degree because he believed, because we told him he could achieve.
Yeah.
We got to start believing in our young people, not just mentoring them and telling them, pull your pants up and put on a tie and speak this King's English or whatever it is we're telling them. The most important thing that we can do is demonstrate our faith in their potential.
That's it.
I see greatness in you.
That's it.
And most of them are great. Most people are great. God did not create imperfect creatures that we have to make good. God created great creatures. And we got to see what God sees in us, in each other. Or Black Detroit will fall victim to the same kind of infighting that, so many other communities have fallen victim to. And so I think that, certainly the Sweet House is a great start. I think that your foundation is amazing. I think recognizing those things and then working together with other people who have a message for our young people that this success runs in your blood. You are no different than Dr. Sweet. You are no different than Daniel Baxter. You are no different than Donna Givens. You are no different than Donna Van Givens. Donna Van Givens and Dr. Sweet got an early start, right? Because whatever happened in their childhoods positioned them to do things in the 1920s, where some people didn't get to do that until the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, but it doesn't mean that everybody doesn't have that same potentiality. And we got to let people know that. But it feels also like there's a lot of infighting in our community, political infighting. Do you see that?
Well, this is my depiction of what our challenge is. And it's me, it's just me, it's just what I believe, right? So one of the greatest politicians that ever lived in Detroit was Coleman Alexander Young. The travesty in his inability to live forever is the fact that when he decided not to run again, all of those people, all of those organizations, those communities that were in line with him, they scattered. Everybody tried to create their own identity. Everybody worked to create their own power structure and influence. At one time, everybody was lined up. There was one time when Coleman Young was mayor, you couldn't run for office unless you had his blessings. Some people disagree with that, but that speaks to unity. When this country was established, there were only a few people who had the opportunity to vote. You had to be white, you had to be a male, you had to be property owner and a Protestant. Less than 6% of the population could vote because they believed that the other 96% did not have the ability to make choices associated with governing. So everybody lined up with that notion. Certainly, we know democracy gave birth to more participation, but the same thing is true in the sense of leadership. When we had that one united and cohesive body, you had citizens district councils that were thriving in communities, that made things happen in those communities. You had precinct delegates who were fully engaged in the entire process, who lined up with Coleman Alexander Young to make sure that Detroit's representation remained united and strong. So after that fell apart, or after Coleman Young decided not to run, all of that fell apart and all these factions were created. And as you stated, we have so much political divisiveness in our community to a point where it almost stagnates us.
I mean, there's a call them out coalition where we are giving people we don't like Black Sambo awards. And we're spending time degrading certain people, right? Calling them out.
Yeah.
You got Sambos, you got Dugginites, you got Elites, then you have people who are considered too radical and whatever. You have all of this name calling and put downs, and it feels to me like we need everybody. We need people in the Duggan administration, whether you like Mike Duggan as mayor or not. What kind of administration do you want? You want an administration where no good people work for him?
Right.
How much infighting can you have where you hope and you criticize and condemn people for the simple act of working for the mayor of the city of Detroit? That's ignorant to me and it's dangerous to me. You don't have to like him as mayor. You go to vote for somebody else if you don't like him. But while he is mayor, I can't understand how some people think. And then you have this, you just have so many divides. I know people who are activists who are treated like they are treasonous because they make demands and they criticize. And it feels like criticism should be part of what happens in government and in the community. You should be able to make a strong demand on the mayor and say, you know what, I don't like what you do, without being ostracized and being treated as though you have no value in the body politic. I think a healthy body politic is going to include all of these different people working together and coming up with solutions. And we've got to figure out how to foster democracy, because democracy demands some level of freedom, I think. Now, I agree on unity and stuff like that, but I think that also there has to be the freedom to dissent, the freedom to consent, and everything in between. And the way I've seen, one of the things I've seen it happen, and it's really interesting. I look at 2020, and and there's the sacred cows. You don't talk about certain things at certain times, but I'm going to kick over a couple sacred cows because I think it's important that we have conversations that don't just stay comfortable, right? So in 2020, we had people going to court fighting and saying that Detroit votes were illegitimate, that we could not trust the Detroit vote. And I watched all of this on Zoom because now you can go to any meeting you want to on Zoom. And I looked at the state when the electors had, the state, when they had to count the votes. What is that? The
canvas.
The state canvassing, right? State canvassing, they decided they wanted to call witnesses. And they called Janice Winfrey, and she went, and she was not intending to go, and they demanded that she show up and speak on our behalf, at this canvassing meeting. And, And we were relieved because she was standing there and people were saying, this was a good vote, this was a good thing. I was relieved when I saw you testify on various matters, but I think about how many of the same people who were really depending on the city clerk's office to confirm the legitimacy of our vote, who in other times have questioned the legitimacy of our vote.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Throw shade, accused people of fraud, said, you
Mm-hmm.
know what, you can't trust this election result. There's no way this could have happened. There's no way everybody could have spelled Duggan correctly and written that name in. It had to be some hanky panky. And people say that repeatedly in the city, casting
Mm-hmm.
doubt on our own votes, casting doubt on our own legitimacy, and in some ways paving the way for other people to exploit that and say, you know what, you don't even think you're legitimate. Why should we?
Right, right, right. I think that I agree with you, but I think that the beauty that was born out of the 2020 presidential election is the level of participation that we witnessed, particularly in Detroit. As you know, Detroit had a 50% voter turnout, which was somewhere right in the family of 250,000 votes cast. 174,000 of those votes were absentees. Uh, as you also know, President Biden and Vice President Harris won Michigan by 150 some odd thousand votes. To attack the legitimacy of the election was a tactic, a political tactic that was born out of those voices that were given to it in the past, as you stated, who questioned the legitimacy of the election. But the beauty of it is that in front of the entire world, in front of not just the United States of America, but the entire globe, we had an opportunity to witness more than 62 law cases, lawsuits going before local, state, and federal courts, even to the Supreme Court, and they were thrown down. They were thrown out in every instance because, as was stated by the highest legal authority in the land, there was no evidence of fraud. And the fight in and of itself gave the ability or gave an opportunity for it to be a transformational moment, in the sense that people really had an opportunity for the first time to see the value of their vote. For the first time, you saw an entity try to rob and marginalize democracy in front of the whole world. And in every instance, all of those rulings came back, no, 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 there is not enough evidence. And the truth of the matter is that there was no fraud. There never has been fraud. The beauty of a democratic society is the fact that it's based on one person, one vote, and it's governed by the people for the people, meaning that your poll workers, your election day folk are human beings and not computers. We don't have touch screens. We have actual ballots that you have an opportunity to vote. We have not only the actual ballot, but we have the unvoted ballots. Everything that we have at the end of the process can be measured back up again to make sure that the integrity of the process remained. The integrity of this election was never in question for the city clerk or the Department of Elections, because we already knew that this was coming. This isn't the first time that it happened. This is the first time that America saw that it happened. In 2004, the Republican parties tried to do the same thing. And when George Bush won the election over John Kerry, they just walked away because there was no threat. But this wasn't the first time that we saw this in Detroit, Michigan, nor will it be the last time.
I mean, in the 1920s, when Judge Murphy was elected, the newspapers, the Republicans, the Detroit Free Press, the Detroit News, all accused Detroit voters as being fraudulent, They called Black voters criminals. They said that this was the Black underworld coming to try to take over the city. And the reason that the Black underworld wanted Judge Murphy to be judge was because he was going to be lenient against their criminality. And they cast the entire Black voting populace as criminal. The most important thing we can do as Americans, as Black Americans, is to really, really, really protect our right to vote, to protect the sanctity of that vote, to defend the sanctity of our vote. You want a different clerk? Vote for one. But what you should not do is question the integrity of the clerk that is. Because when you do, you're casting integrity on your vote, on my vote, on somebody else's vote. I think there's political disagreement, and then there is the effort to invalidate people, leaders, whole things. And there's so many people who want to invalidate Detroit. We've had emergency management where people just invalidated our elected leadership. And so I'm feeling like part of the movement that we need moving forward is really demanding respect for the Black vote, demanding respect for the people who oversee the Black vote. And respect does not mean political agreement, because people have the right in a democracy to politically disagree. But when you start allowing people to build cases against or start rumors and create this, this aura of, I don't trust this person, I don't trust that person, it's dangerous. The reality is, we have people, as you know, because you were leading this also down at the TCF Center, counting votes, having people in their face screaming at them, accusing them of things, telling them they were breaking the law and the people didn't even understand the law. And you and Summer Woods and other had to stand up for us and our right to vote. And I don't think this is a lesson we should forget.
Yeah, so the one thing that I really wanted to point out is I worked for a lot of clerks. I worked for James Bradley, I worked for Jackie Curry, and obviously I worked for Janice Winfrey. Of all of the clerks that I've ever had an opportunity to work with, I give the clerk 5 stars because she's very methodical. When we began to have a conversation about this election, as you know, I was working with the county. She asked me to come back to head up that operation. And what she did was she actually decided to follow the lead of Vice President Harris when she called on the Divine Nine. She asked the Divine Nine to put their hands to the plow. The clerk did the exact same thing. You had so many AKAs, Deltas, Qs, Omegas, Alphas, Zetas, everything. You had everything down there in terms of leadership. And those people took ownership of that process. They held on to that process to guarantee that every vote was counted. And I just have to applaud City Clerk Janice Winfrey for allowing me, number one, to come back and lead such a historic operation. And then secondly, to come up with the ideas and constructs associated with it to ensure that Detroit would be represented in the way that voters chose to be represented.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I applaud her. I applaud you. And, I think that if people question the integrity of the process, they should volunteer.
That's right. That's right. You know what? And you know what? Listen, check this out. So it was interesting because I had a sister called me, right? And she was fussing about the primary. And I said, she asked me, well, Daniel, what's the problem? I'm gonna tell you what the problem is. This was a prominent sister, right? I said, how many times have you worked the polls? You could hear a mouse pissing on cotton when I asked that question. She's just quiet. And she finally said, Daniel, you're right. I'm gonna come and work the polls to assist you guys. I said, that's the problem, that everybody thinks they're too busy or quote unquote or important to participate in this election. We had pastors down there working at the Central Counting Board. Bishop Charles Ellis was down there. Attorney Anthony Adams was down there. So many prominent people were down there, and they took off about 20 hours of their day to assist us either in the first and second shifts of their particular operation. And that's what was so beautiful about it. I've been a part of a whole bunch of elections, Donna. I was there when the lights went out. I was there in 2013 when Duggan did his write-in campaign. I was there when the Republicans came in 2002. I was there when Tom Barrow ran for mayor of the city of Detroit. But I was there with Barack Obama in 2008, 2012. All of those elections pale in comparison to what we witnessed and experienced on November 3rd, 2020, because it transformed the lives of so many people. There are days when I might be going to a restaurant, a grocery store, or even to Better Health, and somebody will say, "Hey, Baxter." And I'll look at them and they say, "I work with you at the Central Accounting Board." And I'll go up to them and I said, "Wasn't that an exciting moment? This sister told me at Better Health, she said, I went in the bathroom and cried and thanked God for being a part of this because I never knew this type of stuff happened when you count absentee ballots." She said, "Baxter, I'll be with you forever. When we first started this was about the money." She said, "But later on, after I saw what had occurred, I knew this was about Detroit. It was about our people and our right to vote." And I asked her, I said, "How many people did you tell?" She said, "I told everybody about what happened." And I'm sure that you received that same thing. You probably ran into people who was down there. Orlando told you. I know Orlando told you.
Orlando called me up while he was down there talking about, "Do you know any people who come down here?" I was like, "No." He was so angry. I was like, we need to call the police. But yeah, I mean, I think I knew a lot of people. A lot of people wanted to. I was so afraid of COVID, I didn't, right? But yeah, in the future, I definitely see myself volunteering. It's the saying, democracy is not a spectator sport. If
That's
you
right.
want democracy, you got to engage. I've tried to engage in other ways. I promise in the future, I'm going to be down there in August, in November, helping to count votes. I'll be all vaccinated by then, and I'll feel safe. And yeah, so I think that the real issue for me was that, but I really do admire so many friends. I did feel kind of left out. I was like, is everybody I know down at TCF? And I'm seeing pictures, people are having reunions. And I was like, this is really great though, because it started a movement for so long. The only people who were volunteering were wonderful, really wonderful senior citizens who I cannot help but admire. They stand there and they deal with complaints and they're trying to work through systems, but a lot of times there's confusion. Everybody doesn't have the same skill level to move things along. And so I think that we need to support those seniors, those people who've just been doing it on a regular basis by saying, we're going to stand here with you and do this job with you every step of the way. So hats off to you and to the clerk, for Janice Winfrey, for doing the job that you did, for defending our right to vote and defending the votes that we made and protecting the process. It could have gone haywire in Detroit. I don't understand how so many people could have been focused on doing the right thing in face of it only took one person to go off, right? But nobody did.
Nobody did.
Well, because sometimes it's like you're hearing about it. It's like, okay, is everybody okay? But it really does speak to the strength of our systems held. And I'm really hoping that it really does invigorate a new level of political engagement in Detroit.
I think you're going to see that.
This is going to be an interesting time. There are many people running for many offices. We have on the ballot in August. What do we have? I think we have the charter, revised charter.
The charter. Well, we'll see whether or not the charter has their question, the amendment on there. It hasn't been approved as of yet. But you have the mayor, you have city clerk, city council, police commission, and the community, what is it called? Community Advisory Commission. So those will definitely be on the ballot for this particular election cycle.
When you say that the charter has not been approved, can you describe that process?
Well, all of that, their language has not been submitted to the governor for approval so that it might be placed on the ballot. So that's what I mean in terms of that. Mm-hmm. So once they finish that and get that language together, it has to be approved and then be placed on the ballot. And it's all ministerial.
Yeah, I'm expecting something to be there. Maybe not what they've put together now, but something should arrive on the ballot after all the work that people in the community have been doing to arrive at some revisions. Hopefully, we'll be able to vote that up and down. If somebody wants to volunteer, what should they do?
Well, they can call the Department of Elections at 313-876-0190, or they can come down to the department at 2978 West Grand Boulevard and apply to work the polls on election day, or you can go to our website, detroitmi.gov/elections, and apply online.
Yeah, so I encourage everybody to apply. If you have any concerns and you feel as though you can help be a part of the solution, not the problem. If somebody wants to give something to the Ossian Sweet Foundation, how do they contribute money?
Well, right now, I'm working on getting all of that together, and it will be forthcoming.
Okay, so when you get it together, let us know, and we're going to share it with the world because we really do want to support you. I'm going to support the foundation when you let me know how. If somebody wants to volunteer, I'm assuming you're going to let people know about volunteer possibilities.
Yes, okay. I will be letting folk know about volunteer opportunities as we continue to build out our programs for the foundation.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you. So if you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Authentically Detroit, or email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. And so right now we're in our shout outs and closing, and we're doing something a little bit different now. We used to just do the shout outs, but it's important also that we have experienced so many losses of life, so many people gone who are part of our community, and it's shocking. And I think it's shocking now, but it's almost like I'm in disbelief because I don't see people anyway. So when I go places, I can't not see people. But when the world opens back up, the tremendous losses, you talk about 400,000 people in the United States, but how many people in Detroit itself?
Yeah.
Not just to COVID, but to other things.
Oh, yeah.
Loss is loss. And we can't celebrate people. We can't come back and commiserate and give people love. And so I just wanted to call out the names of a couple. And I don't know if you have anybody that you wanted to honor. Our very own Mary Wilson today. Cliff Woodard, attorney Cliff Woodard, in the most tragic accident in a collision with police, and then Abina Hogan a week ago, all lost their lives. And I want to honor them as people who are significant in our community. Mary as an icon, music icon, Cliff as an attorney, an activist, a person who knew just about everybody, and Abina Hogan, a woman who was at everybody's meeting, volunteering, took pictures of everybody. I sometimes feel left out because I don't have a picture with her, but I certainly saw her often enough and hugged her. I don't know what happened there, but certainly a wonderful woman. And it was a big shock to all of us to see that she had passed. Is there anybody you'd like to recognize who passed away, Daniel?
I just, one of the deaths that just stung was Benny Napoleon. That really hurt. I think I read an article that said something like he wasn't supposed to die like that. And I just felt that way. It just was a shocker. And I just wanted to lift his name up and lift his family up on today.
Thank you for that. I think we were all devastated by that. It was one of those things where I just wanted to believe he would pull through.
Yeah.
And like everybody, and it was devastating. You lose people who are just really good people as well as being good public servants.
Yeah.
The person.
Yeah, he was an amazing man, sweetheart of a person. He was he was definitely a cop's cop, but he had a heart for service. He had a passion for people, and it was demonstrated in everywhere he went. I mean, people just loved him. Yep. You know, I loved him. You know, I had an opportunity to work with him for almost 2 years when I was working with Wayne County. Every time I called him, he picked up. If he didn't pick up, he called me back. He was the ultimate professional. So we definitely took a loss when we lost him.
I agree. I agree. And some people are just irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Their position is replaced, but that person, well, I mean, everybody's irreplaceable, but some community leaders are larger than life. They're the young people that young people, adults, young people can look up to.
Yeah.
I want to shout out a few people. Dr. Gloria House, who is being nominated as the Detroit's Poet Laureate. A brilliant woman, somebody who has just historical genius with great poetic skills and a real fighter for the community. Dr. Bernadette Atuahene, who wrote the article that was celebrated in a law review. She won awards for this on predatory cities, where she talks about systems of predatory behavior, not people, but just the fact that when you starve cities of resources, cities and governments can become predatory on the poor. You got to read it. It's really well researched. And she agreed, she volunteered to speak at my class tomorrow. I'm super excited because she is a brilliant public servant. Right now, what she is doing is she is agreeing to, she's set up a clinic where she's going to be helping people appeal their property tax assessments if they are too high. And if they are, there's a short window for an appeals process. And what ends up happening is low income people in housing that is not, that's less expensive tends to be over assessed more than your more expensive housing, meaning that the burden of mistakes in property tax assessments ends up falling on the poor. So, Bernadette, we love you. And then finally, I want to commend the TCF vaccine crew. I took my mom and my sister last week to get their shots, and I want to tell you, it was the most well organized thing in the world. Yeah. I was wow. So Kevin and I are going tomorrow morning, and I'm looking forward to getting my first shot. A little bit afraid, but really happy that we're on the pathway to hopefully protection against this horrible pandemic. Is there anybody you would like to recognize?
I just wanted to give a special shout out to my nephew, my main man, the person that's absent today, and that's my boy Orlando. I want to just say to him, thank you for your passion. Thank you for your integrity. Thank you for inspiring people to allow for their lights to shine because you allow your light to shine. You were definitely missed on today, but Donna did a yeoman's job standing in the gap on your behalf. And I just want to say to you, feel better, my brother. And I look forward to seeing you on the next time.
Yep. So we have to have you back because you are such a knowledgeable and outstanding guest. And I know Orlando loves you back. And so I know he was not only sick that he was sick, but sick he couldn't be here with you today. And you know I love Orlando, and I look forward to having you back in the future, hopefully in the near future. So take care of yourself, and we will see you in the future. Thank you for joining us. Thank everybody who listened for listening, and catch the wave.